So just give it a few minutes for people to trickle in.
Okay.
Hi, Shauna. How are you?
I got to figure out my control panel. I'm doing great. How about you?
Good. Haven't seen you since I was on the, I don't know, IBC committee, I don't know, 4 years ago or whatever it was.
Seems like a long time ago now, but it really wasn't.
I just sent Erica an email because I had to get on a different way. I'm not sure who else is on yet.
She's on
David,
here.
I resent you the invites where you have the add to calendar function. And if you have any questions on that, just feel free to reach out to me and I can help you.
Thank you.
No problem. All right. Well, Shauna, I think we're at that time.
Okay. It looks like we still have 3 committee members maybe that we're waiting on, but we at least have a quorum maybe.
Let's see.
Oh, it looks like Paul is on as an attendee.
Okay, we can promote him to panelist.
Oh, yeah. All right. All right. Well, so it looks like we're going to go ahead and get started here. I believe we have a quorum, right, Erica?
Yes. The only person that I'm not seeing is Austin Hvac.
Oh, do you see Jeff?
Is he online?
I don't see Jeff either. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there's 9 members. We should have 5 to make a quorum. Let's see.
Oh, and Jeff is no longer a committee member for the IRC.
Okay. All right. So we have 8 members then? He wasn't replaced.
We have, yep. And so we just need 5. And so we have 7.
Okay.
So we have a quorum.
Well, Austin is on there now. So it looks like everybody's there. All right, perfect. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I see that there's a few attendees joining us, so thank you. Right now, my name is Shauna Mozingo, and I will be the moderator for the IRC hearings on behalf of NORESCO. So just a couple housekeeping items before we get started with our hearings is if for the committee, hopefully you will keep your cameras on, but just your microphones muted so that we can just make sure everybody's attending. If you are in the public and you're going to speak, I think right now we're still going to promote you to a panelist. You can turn on your camera so that we can see you and hear you, and then we'll put you back as public. I think that we're still going to do it that way, right, Erica? No, okay. So it's just trying to make it as personable as possible so we can see your faces as you're available. So if you want to speak as the public when it's your turn, I'll ask you to raise your hand, see you, we'll move you over as a panelist so that you can speak and we can see you, and then we'll put it back. So everybody needs to just stay muted so that we can only have one person talking at a time. I would ask that we're going to take votes by raising the hand. So if you all want to at least try to, even the public, let's try out that raise hand feature. So there's a little, if you don't see it, you might have to hit more, but there's a little thing that says raise your hand. So if you could click on raising your hand, we can see if you all can raise your hand. Perfect. I'm seeing that on a lot. Paul maybe hasn't found it yet.
No, I can't seem to find it.
Okay, so if you hover over the bottom, there's usually like a thing that says, you know, your mute button, your camera, your chat, and then if you don't see it, I think it says, what is it? Reactions or something. You see reactions? Are there 3 little dots at the bottom? If you just kind of hover your mouse over the bottom of your panel.
No, I'm not seeing it. I see participants, chat, and share screen, and mute and stop video, and that's all I see at the bottom.
And not 3 little dots.
Nope.
Well, does anybody else? I don't have the same screen as you. I don't think so. I'm pretty sure it says reactions, but I just need to get him to where he could raise his hand.
So on the screen that Shonda's sharing, Paul, you don't see anything with next to the chat option, even nothing that says raise hand?
No, it was there before you promoted me, and then it disappeared.
That's weird.
Yes.
Okay.
Let me see. Stop video, pin the first.
Okay. I'm trying to think of a solution here, Shauna.
Okay.
We could, Paul, I'm going to try and demote you to attendee and then re-promote you again and see, we can see if it pops up. Shauna, why don't you continue going through housekeeping items, and I'll chat you.
Okay.
If needed.
For attendees, I see 5 attendees. It says one of them's raised their hand, but I don't see the raised hand. Let's see if it's, there they are. So Antonio and James have raised their hand, so good. And then you can go to that same button where you raise your hand and click lower your hand, so that you can lower your hand. Robert, I see your hand. Perfect. So I can also, I believe, lower all the hands. So I'm going to do that. All right. Casey, I see your hand. I'm going to lower it. All right. Paul, did you get that figured out?
When you demoted me, it showed up again. And then when you re-promoted me, it disappeared again.
Okay, well, one option that we can do is just when I call for a vote, you just have to physically raise your hand.
Yep, no problem. I can do that.
Or if you need to speak, I guess just wave your hand, and we'll make sure that we get you. That's so weird. All right, so we're going to keep going. All right, so when we will be doing all of the votes so that we can record if you're for something, if you're against something, and we will also be recording if you're abstaining from voting. So there's sometimes that somebody doesn't want to vote either because they have a conflict of interest or whatever the reason is. And so we do record those abstentions too. So make sure that you get one of the three, for, against, or abstention. So we'll record all of that. We have a limited kind of a time on our process here. We need to get through quite a few things. So we're really going to go through, we're going to stick to Robert's Rules of Orders, and I'll explain that here in just a minute. We're going to go through the process. We're going to we have a timer, we have time limit for the public to speak, and we're just going to go through things. You know, we have the opportunity to pass something or modify something, or I guess I would just say we also have the opportunity to table it to a future hearing, but that is really the last thing we want to do. If possible, we would like to handle them because we kind of put them in the order for a reason. And so if we have to, we can table to a future hearing a set date, but we would like to not do that if at all possible. So just keep in mind that you have the opportunity to approve something, deny something, modify something if we need to, and table as a last resort. You're going to see a timer on the screen. Hopefully you all see that timer. So when we go through, the public will have 2 minutes. So we'll call the item to the floor, and the proponent will have a chance to give their testimony on why they want this change submitted. And then we'll call for all testimony in support of that. And those folks testifying in support will have 2 minutes to give their reasons why they support. You don't have to use the whole 2 minutes. And then we'll call for opposition. And those folks will also have 2 minutes. And these are from the public. Once we have gone through the initial present the proposal, then hear the support and opposition from the public, then committee, you will have the opportunity to ask questions and to make your comments. You won't have the same 2 minute limit necessarily, but we want to keep it as concise as possible so that we can get through our items. But you will have the opportunity to ask questions of the proponent or of people testifying on something you heard, and then we'll give them the chance to hurry up and answer you before we move to the next question. So keep that in mind. If you hear something that's said, you have the opportunity to ask further questions on that to get more clarification. You'll also use that time to discuss how you feel about the proposal. Then we'll open it back up to the public for 1 minute of rebuttal in support, 1 minute of rebuttal in opposition. Then we'll bring it back to the committee for final discussion and a motion and a vote. So any questions real quick on that process? We'll go through it. You'll get the hang of it after the first one or two. So just really trying to keep it open to the public to be able to participate. All right.
And it looks like Anthony Navarro has a question.
Okay. From the end, from the.
Yep, and I can just allow him to talk.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Antonio, if you'd like to unmute yourself.
No, I just wanted to make sure we're clear. Oh, now I'm seeing the functions. Okay, this last meeting we were in, we had the functions for the mute and the video, and I'm not seeing those, so I just wanted to clarify, that's all.
Oh yeah, you kind of, sometimes they go away, you have to hover over all of those to get them to show up.
Fantastic, thank you guys.
You bet. One thing I'll note is the chat function has been disabled. So you're not, if you have pretty much disabled, we might be able to talk to each other a little bit on panelists and committee members, but we have disabled it so that we're not handling a lot of stuff through the chat. We want it to be a public process and we want to hear what you have to say. So if you have questions, just raise your hand, whether you're the public or for the committee, and we will address them that way and not through the chat. All right, so we have this timer. Like I said, the proponents will have, or the proponent will have time to explain their proposal. The public, when your testimony in support and opposition, you'll have 2 minutes. We'll run this timer. Once that's up, then we'll go to the next person who needs to testify. When we're in rebuttal, you'll have 1 minute. So you'll learn to be concise with what you want to say after a little while. We will take a break. So this is supposed to go from 2 till 5. So at about 3:30-ish, wherever, if we're get through with what we're working on, we'll take a break, see how far we're along, maybe a 5 to 10 minute break in that hour and a half, somewhere in there. I will be showing you the proposals all in here as we go. If we need to modify them, I can make those modifications right here as we go, but you'll be able to see the proposals as the proponent is testifying. So that's good. Hopefully you guys have all done your homework and you don't, and you have those proposals in front of you as well. Let's see, what else do I need to tell you as housekeeping? The proponent is allowed to vote. So if the proponent is also on the committee and a voting member, the proponent is allowed to present their item and also vote on it. Those rules were established early on. They are doing the same thing at the national level at ICC. If you're the proponent and you're also on the committee, you are allowed to vote. And I think that that's everything. If there's not any questions, we will get started with our first proposal, and then we'll just see how it goes. It'll run pretty smoothly once we get going. I don't see any questions. All right, I'm going to call to the floor, as it would be, proposal number 9, which is this IRC 101.3, and that with the proponent, Michaela. So Michaela, do you want to take a couple minutes and give us and present your proposal?
Thank you, Shauna. So this proposal is actually recommended in order to give us the the city and county of Denver, the building department, zoning department, the charging language in order to regulate living space within accessory structures. In Denver, we have seen a large increase in the number of applicants proposing detached accessory structures that are either home gyms, home offices, bathrooms, sometimes like pool houses. And this proposal really outlines the necessary language to give the necessary life safety requirements to regulate those accessory structures as dwelling units. So we're really ensuring that they have the necessary egress, emergency escape and rescue openings. In any case where an accessory structure has that living space, we would regulate it as a dwelling unit. And so throughout the proposed amendments here, you're seeing the language that we had to change in order to make that applicable. One of the main reasons is throughout the IRC, you'll see that specific code requirements refer to just a dwelling unit, or habitable space. In this way, this proposal will actually work for accessory structures. A question that some individuals might have is accessory dwelling units. Accessory dwelling units per the IRC are just a dwelling unit, and we regulate them that way. So this proposal is really looking at those accessory structures that aren't full dwelling units.
Excellent. All right. So at this time, that's the proposal. It's hard to get it all shown on the screen for you. There are some things in here that she's highlighting. So hopefully you've all had a chance to review this proposal. At this time, I will take it to the public for testimony, those wishing to talk in support of this proposal. If you want to talk in support of this proposal, please raise your hand. And this is for the public, not the committee. Again, those wishing to talk in support of this proposal. One last time, anybody in support? All right, then I would ask for testimony in opposition to this proposal. Is there any opposition to this proposal as written? Any opposition? Any opposition? Seeing none. Committee, I will take your questions. So if you want, or your comments. So if you have questions of the proponent or you have any comments on your support or opposition, please raise your hand. Austin?
Yeah, so I'm looking at this kind of from a permitting on the water side, which is a little different than sitting in county. But if we're increasing habitable space within structure or adding a new accessory structure onto the premise, that can potentially, similar to a accessory dwelling unit, need additional permitting for another tap for water. And then I also found that the proposal is a little bit inconsistent with the language between structure and dwelling unit and things like that. In some points, it seems like the structure is being considered a dwelling unit, and then other points within the building code, this seems to be completely a different standalone that is not intended for any sort of dwelling. So can we have a little bit more clarification to what this refers to?
Perfect. Michaela, you want to answer that question?
Yeah, it's a great comment, Austin. So you are correct. Additional living space and accessory structure might require a tap, but that's not necessarily being addressed in this proposal. This proposal is referring and giving charging language for just living space within accessory structures that aren't full dwelling units. So a full dwelling unit in the IRC would have to have a kitchen, bathroom, sanitary, living space, and a bedroom. So if you don't have one of those components, it's just part of a living space and accessory structure. And so we need to be able to regulate that from a life safety perspective. Why you see inconsistencies within the terminology of building, dwelling unit, structure is they all have different meanings to those terms. So not all buildings are structures. So a structure can include a fence, right? A building could be a dwelling unit, or it could just be an accessory structure like a garage. And throughout the IRC, you'll see that code requirements will refer to living space, dwelling units, building structures. And so it is necessary for us to define these accessory structures with living space as buildings and, or that first charging language, sorry, the provision, what was it? Living space within accessory structures shall comply with the provisions of this code that are applicable to dwellings, dwelling units, and residences. So that that charging language is really necessary because throughout the code, different code requirements refer to those 3 items.
Thank you. Austin, do you have further questions on that or comments?
Yeah, just one further. Would this only apply to permanent structures, accessory structures?
Michaela?
Yes, that is the intent of this, and I think that's a great question.
I think it would, because sorry, I'm serving 2 hats right now. Sorry.
I know,
I
had to compare it.
One is moderator and one is a subject matter expert. So subject matter expert hat on, you would have to look at the definition of accessory structure, and it would apply to anything that's defined, because that's a defined term. We can look at that real quick if you want, because I also have another, I'm wondering myself as this SME on this, why you defined, or this is not a definition, this is just a requirement. Nope, it's a definition. This is a definition for garage. And why you chose that definition instead of the definition that's in the IBC. That was my question for you, but let's look real quick at accessory structure to see if we can answer your question. This was what I was talking about, Michaela, private garage is defined, and I was wondering if there was a reason that you didn't use that definition. IRC definition for accessory structure. A structure that is accessory to and incidental to that of dwellings, and that is located on the same lot. So it doesn't necessarily say permanent. It could be a shed, I guess, you know. I mean, it doesn't say, but it's permanent.
Yeah, I guess the area that I'm a little bit concerned with is, again, referring to water taps and how we permit that portion, is kind of these long-term temporary uses that are extending use past what we have language for a temporary water tap, and that would be any sort of like construction, shed, or like a building on a property that stays for a long period of time, or even a tent that is used but has some sort of water use or sanitation type use in it for a long period of time.
Okay. Anybody else have any other comments, concerns, anything that they want to point out before we go? Well, it's hard to go to the public for rebuttal when they didn't testify to me. But they might want to rebut something that you have all said. So we'll go to rebuttal here. David.
Should we be talking about this as a habitable space rather than a living space?
Michaela?
I mean, we're talking about accessory uses, habitable versus non-habitable.
Michaela, did you want to answer?
Yeah, so Shona, can you pull up the habitable space definition?
Sure.
And it really comes down to the definition of habitable space and living space in the IRC, and why we chose using living space as the charging language. So in similar areas. And the main reason there, it comes down to that second sentence under habitable space. So bathrooms, toilet rooms, closets, hall storage, or utility spaces in similar areas are not considered habitable space. And we need this to apply when we have accessory structures that have bathrooms in it, but not other types of habitable space.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Any other comments? Concerns with any of the or questions for Michaela? If not, all right, we're going to take it to the public. So I'm going to ask for rebuttal in support, but just rebutting what you've heard in these comments, right? Not rebutting anything else about the proposal, because those only, it's rebuttal. So rebuttal means you're going to comment on something that you heard. So if there's any testimony, rebuttal in support of the proposal, please raise your hand to the public. Testimony in support. One more time, any rebuttal in support? Any rebuttal in opposition? Something you heard that you would like to oppose? Any rebuttal in opposition? Any rebuttal in opposition? No. Okay. We'll go back to the committee. Committee, at this time, I would say that we need a motion on the floor to us to approve as written, approve with the intent to modify, or disapprove. And then we can have further discussion. David? Oops, you're muted. There you go.
I'll make a motion to approve this proposal as submitted.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
And who said that? Sorry. Casey?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. All right, so there's a motion and a second for approval as submitted. Can we get some discussion, especially even a reason statement of why you think it should be approved? Any discussion? Casey, you have your hand up. Did you want to keep going? No? Okay. Any discussion? Or a reason statement? Or do you want to just go with Michaela's reason in her in her proposal? No? All right, no discussion. Are you needing a reason statement, Erica? Are you okay with them going without providing a reason?
Nope, we are good to go.
Okay, all right. All right, so the motion and a second for approval as submitted with no further testimony. So I would call for all of those in support of the motion for approval as submitted. Please raise your hand, committee only. Paul, let the record show Paul raised his hand. So I have 1, 2, 3, 6 plus Paul. All right, I show 6 plus Paul. And if you want to lower your hand, I guess I could do that. And then all those, wait, I still have some hands raised. Okay, all those in opposed? 1. And then those abstaining, I guess there wouldn't be any because we were at 7 and 1, correct, Erica? Oh, David, did you have a question?
No, I think I raised my hand accidentally. So sorry.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I'm in favor.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I would be the only abstain.
Okay.
I'll raise my hand on that, but.
Okay. All right, thank you, Austin.
Okay, so I have 7 for, 0 against, and 1 abstaining.
Okay. All right, then that proposal passes 7-0 to 1. So with that, no modifications. Will bring up proposal number 4. Proposal number 4, addressing IRC 202 for alterations. Mr. James Sobey is the proponent. Mr. Sobey, are you available and would like to testify?
Like he is an attendee.
Okay, so I just need to move him over. All right. So Mr. Sobey, you should have the availability to turn your camera on and to testify. James, are you available to?
I am here now. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear
yes.
you. Okay.
No, I don't know what happened. Unmuting.
Okay.
Okay. So this proposal is to add further defining language to the definition of alteration based on experience we've had with residential reviews to provide better application of charging language and applications of the code dealing with scope and the use of the term alteration in section R 101.2. And it simply adds an additional line to the definition that's in the existing code, which is underlined here, which is including the, I'll read the line, including the addition or elimination of any door or window, the configuration or extension of any system, space, or structure, the enlargement, installation of additional equipment, or change of use or occupancy. This language has been discussed and was thought to be helpful with the application of requirements for codes in particular situations that proposed alterations that were reconfigurations that sometimes were borderline repairs as opposed to reconfigurations or alterations and changes of use in occupancy. There's some discussion as to whether the term change of use in occupancy is a necessary addition for this definition. But that's something that we can discuss. In terms of adding any complexity to the code, the attempt is really to add language to further assist in a clear application of the code rather than any confusion. Again, it's a direct response to a number of questions we've had during the review process with residential reviews. You can see the purpose of the proposal is to clearly define the full scope of the Denver Amendment. The IRC language is a proposal necessary. The IRC code language does not fully define the scope of alteration for reconfigurations, change of use, and occupancy as required for the required clearly justified intended application of the code in these cases. And it's the proposal does not change the application of the code. That's not the intent. It provides clarification language to address the intended full scope of application.
Thank you. Could you just say who you're representing? I mean, your proposal.
I'm sorry, could you repeat?
Yes, could you just say who you are representing? Are you representing yourself, the city, or?
He's representing the city.
The city, yeah. It's
Okay.
this is a proposal that I'm responsible for, but it was something that was agreed upon by the residential group as something that was needed for better clarification
Thank you.
The application of the code.
Yes, thank you. I just want to reiterate, please let us know as we go who you're representing when you testify, because
sorry.
No, that's okay, not just you.
Yeah.
Just some of the proposals that were submitted by city staff come in as public, and some of them come in as representing the city. So we just make sure that for the record as we go, we keep it clarified between the two. So this one didn't come in as a public proposal, and it is a staff proposal. So, all right, thank you very much, Mr. Sobey. So we're going to take at this time and go out to the public and ask if there is any testimony from the public in support of this proposal to expand the definition of alteration in the IRC. Any testimony in support? One last time, any testimony in support of this proposal? Seeing none, any testimony in opposition? Any testimony in opposition to this revised definition? Any testimony in opposition? No, seeing none. Committee, we'll take questions, comments, concerns. Michaela?
So I would like to propose a modification at this time. Is that the appropriate time, or?
Well, we're gonna have to get we can get a motion on the floor. I think right now, what would your modification be if you were gonna make
it? I'll just raise it as a concern. I don't believe that this definition should include the words "or a change of use or occupancy," as those are change of use and occupancy is a defined term and is not always an alteration. A change of use or occupancy could just be changing a room from a bedroom to an office, the label and the intent of the code, right? So I really do not believe it belongs in this definition.
Okay. Any other comments or questions or concerns regarding the proposal, Michaela, while you have the floor? No? Okay. Kate.
Yeah, I just am wondering if excuse me, the enlargement or installation of additional equipment, like, what does that mean? Is it, is it specific to mechanical equipment or what?
Very good. Mr. Sobey, would you like to answer that question?
That's language that's in the existing definition in the code.
Right.
Yes.
I think are you talking about the reconfiguration or extension of a system, or are you talking about?
I can address that particular addition.
Okay.
Including the addition, elimination of any door or window is something that we commonly see with residential permit applications and does have an impact on many code issues. And sometimes is question as to whether that's really an alteration. It clearly would be an alteration, but the addition of those terms within the definition, I think helps to clarify review comments and communication with applicants.
I think what she's speaking specifically to is the enlargement or installation of additional equipment. And so wondering if that means
Oh,
HVAC
yeah.
equipment or any other kind of equipment.
Right.
I mean, is there a definition of that in the code? I just don't remember that.
Of equipment, you mean?
Yeah, the additional equipment.
The additional equipment. No, that language is not in the code. In some cases, we see the addition of mechanical equipment or some other type of equipment to a house, which we would consider an alteration or an enlargement of equipment. And again, sometimes that's questioned as to whether it's really an alteration or a replacement or repair.
I can say as SME, just my comment on SME is because this is talking about a change in electric, gas, mechanical, or plumbing systems. That's the original wording. And then it says, including this. So that equipment would be any electrical equipment, gas equipment, mechanical, or plumbing system equipment, because that's what's addressed there. So anything that is pretty much a code requirement. There's some things that would be equipment like a modem or something that is not regulated by the code, so it wouldn't include that.
I guess it seems in that case to be redundant if it's already said. Why say it again? That's what I'm just not understanding, I suppose.
Okay. Mr. Sobey, are you guys having a problem with that? Is that?
An extension or a change, I don't necessarily have a problem with that comment.
I mean, do you have a problem with enforcing this section of the code, and that's why you added that additional wording? I mean, are you getting some issues?
Yes, we had issues with the application of that portion of the code. So the language was to further define a change in equipment, an enlargement. The enlargement, it really just refers to the enlargement of equipment.
All right, thank you. Mark.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking the same as Kate, that there's a lot of redundancy. The code already, this alteration says a change in building electrical, gas, or mechanical or plumbing systems. And then you say the same thing, a reconfiguration or extension of any system, the enlargement or installation or additional equipment, so you're saying the same thing 3 times. So when you go back to, you know, a modem isn't in this first statement that's not underlined, but then it could be when you say system, define system. A solar system, modem system, data system. I mean, it's a blanket statement that's covering a lot of items. That's my thoughts on it.
Yeah,
anybody else?
I find I'm in agreement with the enlargement of installation of additional equipment may be redundant. The intent of the addition of the reconfiguration or extension of any system, space, or structure was something that was discussed and decided upon in terms of the language because of particular applications that we've seen for alterations of particular parts of buildings that the applicant referred to as repairs, which in an interpretation of what was actually being proposed. They were actually enlargements of, for example, an eave or an overhang, or which was part of an extension of a building system, or an increase in the space of a particular area of the building or use of the building or structure. Those were the issues that we were trying to address here. And then the enlargement of or installation of additional equipment, I agree, could be construed as redundant. It was just to further clarify the language that was already in the code. Quite often we see proposals to enlarge areas to increase a particular mechanical system or a portion of the building, and the use of the word enlargement was thought to have been important with the reviewers we had discussed this with. So
there is the opportunity that you could put installation of additional HVAC equipment if you want to be specific, so that you're not including, you know, that's thought. Also, as a committee, I would ask for any more comments, and to see if anybody else has a comment regarding, as Michaela, the change of use or occupancy, because it sounds like that will be a modification coming up. So just making sure that you guys, if anybody has any questions or concerns regarding that as well. Any other comments, concerns, questions before I go back to the public? All right, attendees, public, I'm bringing it to you for rebuttal. Rebuttal only on what you've heard the committee discuss. So is there any rebuttal in support of this proposal? Any rebuttal in support of what you've heard? Rebuttal in support? Rebuttal in opposition? Just raise your hand if you want to speak. Rebuttal in opposition to what you've heard? Last call, rebuttal in opposition. All right, committee, back to you for a motion.
I would make the motion to approve with modification as discussed.
To remove the word "or a change of use or occupancy." Is that what you're, or to add the HVAC equipment right here?
Both of those. Add HVAC, remove change of use or occupancy.
All right. First, I need to make Mr. Sobey not a panelist, right? Because he's no longer.
May I recommend a different modification?
Well, just for, okay. Austin, do you want to restate your modification for the record?
My modification was add HVAC equipment and remove from or to the end of the sentence.
All right, so the new wording would say, including the addition or elimination of any door or window, the reconfiguration or extension of any system, space, or structures, the enlargement or installation of additional HVAC equipment, period. Correct? Is there a second for that? You have the opportunity later to further modify it. Is there a second for that modification? Kate, is that just raising your hand as a second?
Yeah.
Or you?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second, and now we can discuss it. And Michaela, if you think it needs to be further modified or something, we can also do that at this time. Oh, let me just here. I have the ability to so you know what you're voting on. All right, so that is Austin's amendment. Any discussion?
Is this when I should propose an additional modification?
Yeah, if you want to talk about it, let's talk about it and see if Austin wants to amend his or if you want to do further amend it.
Yeah, I would recommend that it states including the addition or elimination of any door or window. And then, sorry. And delete the reconfiguration or extension of any system space or structures.
Right here.
Mm-hmm.
Just delete
and then
that.
Put a word "and" between window and
the enlargement.
I think it should say including the addition or elimination of any door or window, and then comma, and the installation of additional HVAC equipment.
Okay. All right, so that's a further modification. So here's what we're going to do.
Or the enlargement or installation. Thank you.
Okay. So this is a further modification. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk just about that modification. So here's how this works when we're doing this. If it's been further modified, we talk just about that modification. If that modification goes through, then we take it back and talk about it with the other modification. But if it doesn't go through, then we just go back and talk about the other modification. So let's talk about just this modification to remove that sentence.
I'll state why I thought
that'd be great.
It was mostly in response to some of the comments I heard from the committee saying that that was redundant information and could be misconstrued in terms of the term system, space, or structures.
Okay. Anybody else? I need to, and I don't think I have to make him a panelist, but I do need to ask the proponent if he is, his feelings on that. So, Mr. Sobey, I am going to allow you to talk to just the removal of that sentence.
I don't know. Can you hear me? I can't hear anything.
Yes, we can hear you.
My system crashed on me and it muted. If anybody can hear me.
Huh. Maybe I need to make him a panelist.
We can hear you, James.
Hello?
All right. There, now can you hear us? No. Okay. Doesn't seem to work whichever one he is in. All right. So the rest of the committee, any conversation about this? Is everybody okay with that? If so, we're going to vote on just that modification. Okay, just the modification to remove this sentence if there's no more testimony. All right, all in favor of just that modification? And then Paul, where are you? Are you voting?
Can you see?
You raised your hand.
I figured it out.
Perfect. All right. All right. So it's a unanimous. That portion is unanimous for that. Now we're going to go to the full modification to include the change of occupancy and the addition of the word HVAC. And so any comments there? The motion on the floor right now, David? No, you just didn't lower your hand. Okay. All right, so right now this is the full modification that we further modified. If there's no other discussion, then I'm going to call for the vote on this full modification. One last chance for you all to make a final comment. No? Okay. All right. Then I will ask for all those in support of this full modification. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. Let the record show a unanimous decision in support of proposal number 4 as modified by the committee. I will save that one so you have those modifications. All right, let's call now to the floor. Proposal number 5, which is IRC 302.1. Michaela, do you want to give your testimony?
So I am proposing that we remove exception 6 from R302.1. This exception states where the zoning ordinance establishes a minimum of 10 feet clear separation distance between the exterior walls of adjacent 1 and 2 family dwellings located on separated properties and allows one building to be closer to the actual lot line than the other. The imaginary line provision of section 705.3, sorry, this is really long, of the IBC may be used. The exterior wall shall not be located less than 3 feet to the actual property line. The location of the assumed imaginary line with relation to both buildings shall be such that the exterior wall openings, projections, and penetrations meet the criteria set forth in section R302.1. I'm proposing to remove this exception because unless you know every line of the 2 Denver zoning codes, you may not know when this is actually applicable. It is only applicable in very few instances. It's under former chapter 59 in planned building groups or PUDs that allowed for a 10-foot separation. And that was usually when there were multiple structures, like 1 and 2 family structures on one zone lot. So they were allowing this imaginary line provision to be applied across lot lines instead of measuring to the lot line. This provision is extremely difficult to administer from a plan review and also probably from the applicant's standpoint to ensure that alterations, repairs, additions in the future meet the fire resistance construction requirements unless you knew where that imaginary line was placed in the plan in the building permit documents. You wouldn't know if they were creating a violation or a future problem when a addition, alteration, or repair comes in. So eliminating this would result in going back to the base code language, essentially that the measurement of fire separation distance is per R302 and the definition of fire separation distance in the IRC. I'm happy to answer any questions. Oh, and I am the residential plan review supervisor, and I'm representing the city on this proposal.
Thank you very much. All right, we're going to open it up to the public for testimonies. So at this time, we would take testimony in support of this proposal as submitted. Is there any testimony by the public in support? Just raise your hand, last chance, testimony in support. Testimony in opposition of the proposal as submitted. Testimony in opposition. Last chance, testimony in opposition. All right, committee. Let's hear from you on this proposal of Michaela's. If you have any questions, concerns. Nothing? Okay, well, there won't be any rebuttal because nobody has said anything. So we won't take it back out to the public. I would ask the committee for a motion. Kate?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve this proposal as written.
Okay. Is there a second? Casey? Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second for as submitted for proposal number 5. Any discussion? All right, then we will call the vote. All of those in support of as submitted, please raise your hand. All right, and that is a unanimous decision. So as submitted for proposal number 5 with a count 8-0. Thank you very much. All right, we will call to the floor item number 1. Maybe. There we go. All right, item number 1, this will be Mr. Sobey. So let me go over here and bring him back over. All right, Mr. Sobey, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
I crashed a couple times previously. I apologize for that.
I do know that feeling.
Yeah, so so I'm with the city, plan reviewer with the residential and commercial group. This is a proposal that's a continuation of an existing proposal that's been in the Denver code for many years. And I don't know exactly the full history, but it is to accommodate older buildings in basement remodels, primarily in head height. What we have done here is proposed a slight modification and simplification of the code. And we'd seen some issues with the previous code language in its application. And in this case, we've streamlined the code, made it simpler. And we're still including the exception that ceiling heights in basements built prior to October 1990 shall be a minimum of 6'8" inches. And then you can see we've eliminated the minimum clearance of 6'4" inches for any ceiling projections caused by beams, ducts, or pipes, as well as section R305 1.1. And we've eliminated that section, which in the past had allowed beams, girders, ducts, stair headroom, which we didn't think was proper at all. In other obstructions, the ceiling height shall be not less than 6'4" inches from the finished floor. So what we've done here is we've simplified the code and eliminated portions of it from the Denver code while still allowing basements built prior to 1990 to have a minimum ceiling height of 6'8" inches. The justification is that we felt that the purpose is to streamline the Denver amendments and not have any language in there that we don't need. And also to address a clarification of interpretations of this code, which we felt were not clear or properly applied. And that was specifically having to do with headroom height and stairs. So that is an elimination of this section of the code. And then let's see, why is the purpose valid? It doesn't change the intent of the application of the provision. It places them in more appropriate locations in the code and reduces the language of the code that we felt was not necessary. And it doesn't add any additional difficulty or cost in its application.
Sorry, I couldn't get unmuted. All right, thank you very much. Before I take it to the public, as subject matter expert, Pat, on this proposal, I would ask you, Mr. Sobey, if there was a house built prior to 1990, you mentioned that you weren't really changing anything, just changing where it was at. I feel that's true for headroom above stairs and immediate at bottom landings, but anywhere in a basement built before 1990, if I had a beam or a duct or a pipe, I could go down to 6'4", and that's no longer the case at all. So if I pulled the basement finish yesterday, I could go down to 6 feet 4 inches in those locations. But if I go do something in the future to that same basement, will I be required to bring that stuff up to 6'8" because it's no longer allowed, but it was all of this time? A lot of times when you're writing the code and you say, I can move, no longer is it allowed. That's one thing, which is what you're doing here. No longer is it allowed. But here you're going back and saying, even though we allowed it all of these years, it's no longer allowed, which is okay. But I guess I would ask you, if it was allowed and I made something at 6'4", and I go to pull a permit to do anything else in there, am I going to have to move it to 6'8"? And so that is just a question that I would have, that I see on it as subject matter expert.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that that was definitely your attention. All right, we're going to go to the public. And right now, this proposal is as submitted. Is there any testimony from the public in support of this proposal? It looks like David Wren. I think I need to make you a panelist, I think, so that you can show us your face and talk to us. Mr. Wren. Okay. David, hello.
Hello. David Wren with the City and County of Denver. I'm currently the acting supervisor of the Architectural and Structural Group, speaking on my own behalf on this. I just want to make a comment on that last discussion about whether or not we're taking away the 6'4" at beams, girders, ducts, and other obstructions. Because on the surface, it appears we are. I don't think that's the case, because the exception that is being deleted from R30511, we had just replaced that exception. By deleting our amendment, we still keep the exception that's in the base code. And the base code allows 6'4" at beams, girders, ducts, or other obstructions. So the only thing this does is move the headroom out, the stair headroom, and puts it in a different section. So I just want to make that clear that that's still there.
Perfectly. Excellent. Thank you so much, David. Any other testimony and support from the attendees? Testimony in support. Any testimony in opposition from the attendees? It looks like there is. Mr. Pruitt, you're going to get promoted to a panelist, hopefully. There you go, Mr. Pruitt. Testimony in opposition, Mr. Pruitt.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I am just curious where in the IRC the 6'4" exception is located.
It's in section 305.1.1. Correct, David? I don't have it in front of me. I can pull up the.
It's the exception to 305.
Yeah.
0.1.1.
Yeah.
Right here, so 305.1.1. It's
okay. Yep, I found it. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so that okay. All right, I'm gonna ask everybody to keep muted unless you're called on. So this exception will remain. It was the Denver's exception that got removed. All right, any other testimony in opposition? Any testimony in opposition? All right, I'm going to come back. I'm now to the committee. Committee, I would take your, let me pull up the proposal. We are on proposal number 1. All right, I would take your questions, concerns. Michaela.
Yes, I do believe this code proposal is unintentionally changing the intent of the code. And I state that because this happens daily with applicants that come in. Shauna, will you scroll up so we can see the beginning? So I wanted to point out to everybody, there's section R305.1, and that is applicable to habitable space and habitable space, hallways, and portions of basements containing these spaces. Section R305.1.1 is applicable to portions of basements that do not contain habitable space or hallways. And that's really important because section R305.1.1 is the only one that has an exception for a 6'4" stair headroom height. And so that should only be applicable to basements or portions thereof that do not have habitable space. And that needs, if we're going to move stair headroom from that exception to headroom in R311.7.2, it clearly needs to state that. And it does not at this moment. It's giving an exception for all basements pre-1990, whether they have habitable space or not. And I'm absolutely opposed to that because I do believe that if you have habitable space in a basement, it needs to have a 6'8" stair headroom height. And that's for safety reasons, right? People falling downstairs is one of the leading causes a lot of injuries. So it's unintentionally changing the code there. I do see Shauna's point about it could be misconstrued in R305.1 if we eliminate that portion of the code. People might think that the exception that I think exists currently in R305.1.3 related to beams, girders, ducts might not be applicable to structures pre-1990. So a lot of concerns there.
All right, thank you, David. David Lawrence, sorry. No? Okay. Any other committee questions, concerns, thoughts of amendments? No? All right, I'm going to take it out to the public for rebuttal. I would take a rebuttal in support of only what you've heard for this proposal. Rebuttal in support. Rebuttal in support, final call. Rebuttal in opposition to the proposal based on what you've heard. Rebuttal in opposition. Last call for rebuttal in opposition. Okay, committee, I will give it back to you for a motion, please. Don't all of you jump at once.
I don't know how to state this, but I'd like to make a motion to reject this proposal as written.
Okay, let me change that. All right, is there a second? Casey, all right. There's a motion and a second for disapproval of this proposal. Would like to have seen any further discussion? Casey, is your hand still raised? Are you guys still raised for? Okay. I don't see any other discussion. Austin was raised for a second, but you're back down. Everybody, no discussion. Because what I will tell you is if we get a mixed vote, people will want to say, well, why did you support it? And why was it disapproved? So unless you're all going to disapprove it, it would be good to have somebody say why they wouldn't disapprove it. Just that's something that people like to see in the discussion. All right, if there is no more testimony, we will call the vote. So all of the motion on the floor is for disapproval. All of those in favor of disapproval, please raise your hand. One, two, three, four, five, six. Okay. You can lower your hands. All those opposed to disapproval? Zero. And all of those abstaining from voting? We still have 8 committee members and only 6 voted. There's 7.
It looks like is in the attendees for some reason.
Who is?
Kate Hilberg.
Oh, wonder what happened. Let's move her back over here. Sorry, Kate. Kate, if you want to just let us know if you're in support, opposition, or abstain.
I'll be in support. Thank you for letting me back in.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened. All right, so 7 to 0 to 1. So the proposal has been disapproved with the count 7 to 0 to 1. All right, I just want to go through here and remove anybody that was not on the committee before we change role to attendee here. All right. Hopefully that's everybody. I keep trying to change James. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we should have 8.
Sorry, right. Shauna, can you clarify what Kate's position was?
In support of disapproval.
Okay.
Yeah, that gets a little bit, it does get confusing when we're doing a disapproval vote and you have to, we are supporting the proposal or supporting disapproval. All right, right now we are on proposal number 15. Michaela, you want to present your proposal? Oh. There you are.
Thank you. I'm trying to be able to read it at the same time. So this proposal is being proposed to increase the protections for Denver residents where exterior walkways are in proximity to the top of a tall retaining wall in landscaping areas that create fall hazards. So this is a unique amendment to Denver that I probably wouldn't propose in more of a rural area. But in Denver, we have this urban environment with very tight lot widths in the majority of Denver. And what that results in is we are seeing a lot of applicants create almost 8-10 foot tall retaining walls in the rear yards or front yards or side yards in this very urban environment that can create large fall hazards. So we are proposing that we change the language for guards to require them in addition to floors, stairs, ramps, and landings, to decks, patios, and other hardscaped and landscape surfaces designed and intended for walking. We do place an exception here, which states for a guard shall not be required at retaining walls adjacent to hardscaped or landscape walking surfaces located 36 inches or more, measured horizontally and perpendicularly from the top edge of the retaining wall. So it's really, it does give that a buffer of not requiring guards when there is a space between the walking surface and the top of that retaining wall. And that's really intended not to require guards in some of your landscaped areas, right? But really to focus on when it truly is a walking surface like stairs or a public sidewalk right next to an 8 foot or 10 foot drop. And this really will give us that charging language in the appropriate section to require that. Right now, the city has to utilize some of our language for dangerous structures, mostly related to open pits, to require applicants to put a guard up in some of these unsafe locations. And I am representing the city on this proposal.
Thank you very much. All right. All right. Thank you, Michaela. All right, let's go out to the public. Let's see. Is there anybody that wishes to testify in support of this proposal? Testimony and support. And last chance, testimony and support. In opposition. Just remember, if you want to testify, you just have to raise your hand. And testimony in opposition. Anyone opposing? All right, committee. Any questions, concerns, conversations? Kate?
I think this is a good clarification. It's always been sort of a gray space, and I think we, as an organization where I work, we tend to err on the side of let's just put guards everywhere. And so in my opinion, it does eliminate some cost, at least when you're trying to do the right thing and you're overdoing the right thing, maybe.
Anybody else? Any other committee discussion? Okay. I don't think we need to go back to rebuttal. Well, wait a minute. Maybe I guess we do. All right, I will ask for rebuttal, but you can only rebut what you just heard. It can't be on the main proposal. It can only be what Kate just said, because you're rebutting what somebody said, right? So if there's rebuttal on what Kate just said, in support, rebuttal in opposition. Okay, committee would take a motion. Kate?
I vote to approve the proposal as written.
Okay.
I would
Is
say
there
that motion.
Okay, thank you, David. All right, there's a motion and a second for approval as submitted. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All of those in support of proposal number 15 as submitted, please raise your hand. And that proposal passed unanimously with a vote of 8-0. All right, with that, it is about the 3:30 time frame. So I think we will, in fact, there goes my alarm, see? We're gonna take, what do you want, 5, 10 minutes? 10, all right, we're gonna take a 10-minute break. So I'm gonna ask you to come back at 3:40. I'll put up a little timer, but come back at 3:40. Okay, we have to start. All right. Welcome back, everybody. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We still have all 8 of you. Awesome. Good job. Thanks for coming back. Sorry, hopefully you can hear me. All right, we are back and we are on public proposal 17.1. Before I start that, I guess I would just make sure any questions? Everything going okay, Erica? You need anything from us to do differently?
Let's just verify that we have everyone back in attendance. So if all the committee members could raise their hand. All right. Looks like we're just missing Michaela. Are you there?
There she is.
Okay, great.
All right, perfect. We have our committee back. So we're going to start with public proposal 17.1 for IRC 324.4. That is David Wren, it looks like. So I am going to go over here to the attendees and make David a panelist. All right. So David, whenever you're ready, we'll take your testimony on this proposal.
All right, I'm David Wren with the City and County of Denver, Acting Supervisor of the Architectural and Structural Plan Review Group. But on this proposal, I am representing the Denver Building Department Liaison Committee of the Structural Engineers Association of Colorado. So in the last code cycle, when we amended the 2018 codes, Denver adopted Appendix AT, or Appendix T, it's AT now, I believe, for solar ready zones. And part of the requirements in that appendix is that the drawings show the design loads that were used for this future solar ready zone. Unfortunately, so that affects the structural design. You essentially have to design for a future load. But unfortunately, structural engineers really are completely unfamiliar with solar ready zones. They have no need to go to the appendix for solar ready zones. So they have no idea that that requirement is there. So the intent of this proposal is to get something into Chapter 3 of the IRC that just points a structural engineer to that appendix. They know that requirement is there. So section R324.4 is for rooftop mounted photovoltaic systems. And the 0.1 section that this proposal amends gives all these structural requirements if you are putting in a PV system today. And all I'm doing is adding a sentence to the end of it to refer to the appendix if you have for the solar ready zone. So it just gives a cue for a structural engineer that's really only living in Chapter 3 for the most part for design, for determining design loads. It just gives them a cue to head to the appendix to see what the structural requirements are there. And with that, I would urge your support.
Excellent, thank you, David. All right, let's go to the public. Any testimony in support of this proposal? Just raise your hand if you are in support. One last chance for support. Anybody in opposition? Raise your hand for opposition. One last chance for opposition. All right, committee. Any questions, concerns, comments? Seeing none, I'm not going to go out to rebuttal, so we will just need a motion. Michaela?
Motion to support this proposal as written.
Okay. Uh-oh. Did I just move somebody unintentionally to an attendee? Who got moved? David Burton instead of David Wren. Sorry.
I'll vote for him. Don't worry.
Okay. All right. All right. So Michaela is a approval as submitted, and Austin, is that a second or you have a comment?
No, that's a second.
All right. Perfect. Thank you. All right. We have a motion and a second for as submitted. Is there any comments, testimony that we need to hear? No, Michaela, that's just the hand from before. Okay, no worries. All right, seeing none, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor of proposal 17, P17.1 as submitted, please raise your hand. All right. And that is a unanimous decision, so that has been approved as submitted with a count of 8-0. Thank you very much. Let's go to proposal number 7. Proposal number 7 is not David, so I'm taking you out of here, David. Sorry. Hopefully I take out the right David. It's tricky there. All right. Michaela. No worries. Oops.
Yep. Sorry, just making sure I had the right one.
Okay.
So this proposal is providing an alternative structural system that has been accepted and approved by Denver for storage sheds, and the parameters allowed for this alternative method. Often storage sheds, we allow any that are 200 square feet or less in area, 10 feet or less in height, measured, and we're outlining how that is measured in this proposal from grade plane to the top of the wall's top plate. And they will be allowed as long as they are anchored to a slab or secured with one earth anchor at each corner and a total of at least 4 anchors. And the anchors are supposed to be shall be installed in accordance with the manufacturer's specifications. And this is an alternative method. The intent is not to require footings to frost depth for all sheds of small size and light construction. And I am representing the city on this proposal.
Awesome. All right, thank you very much. All right, we're going to go to the public real quick. So you have before you proposal number 7. I would take any testimony in support of this proposal as written. Raise your hand if you're in support. If you want to testify in support, it's the last call. Opposition. Any opposition from the public? Opposition, last call. All right, committee. You have some discussion on this? Any questions, comments? Motion? We're gonna at least need a motion. There we go. Kate.
I'll make a motion to support the proposal as written.
All right. Is there a second? Paul, it looks like first one up there. So testimony or the motion on the floor is for as submitted for proposal number 7. Any discussion? How about a vote? All those in support, all those in favor of as submitted, please raise your hand. And that is a unanimous vote of 8-0. 8-0-0, I guess I should say from now on. Thank you very much. All right, that concludes number 7. We're just getting through here. Now we'll go to public proposal. That's easy for me to say. 24.6, public proposal 24.6, which is Robbie Schwartz. So let me go over here, Robbie, and make you a presenter. Hopefully it did that. Yeah, there we go. All right, Robbie, how did Casey get over here as a presenter?
Hello, everyone. This is Robbie Schwartz of Built Tank Inc. Thanks for letting me present today on this proposal. This proposal is with regards to the vapor retarder section of the IRC. The main issue I have with this section of code is in R 702.7.3 that states minimum clear air spaces and vented openings for vented cladding. In that section of the code, it never tells you what the minimum clear airspace needs to be, which is really a critical component to be able to use a class 3 vapor retarder. And, you know, from a building science perspective, we're always promoting that our clients, our builder clients, not put a class 1 vapor retarder in the assembly so that you're promoting greater drying potential within that assembly. And we need to be able to utilize these newer systems that are coming available, vented rain screens, for example, or Joe Stiebrick is talking about just putting sill seal vertically on the wall assembly, then putting your siding up there and getting a gap there. There's drain wrap by Hvac and whatnot that gives you an airspace, but none of those products would be, in theory, would be allowed to be used because there's no definition of what the minimum clearance space should be. So this proposal is trying to put that in so that we can get better adherence with the newer technologies that are out there to give us better ventilation behind our siding, but also better vapor management within our wall assemblies. Thanks so much for your time.
Just so unmute. Thank you, Robbie. All right, we're going to take this out to the public for any testimony in support of Robbie's proposal. Raise your hand if you're in support and you want to speak. Anyone wishing to speak in support? All right, opposition. Anybody in the public wishing to speak in opposition to this proposal? Opposition, anybody? Oh, I have one. Nathan?
Yeah, I think you guys can hear me. Looks like maybe I'm on.
Yes.
All right. Not sure why my camera isn't working, but
Robbie, I don't have you as a presenter. Sorry.
That's all right. Robbie, yeah, thanks. This is Nate with Brookfield Homes Residential. Thanks for bringing this up, because this is always kind of a question that comes about whenever vapor barriers or vapor retarders are coming up in discussion with code reviews. As I was reviewing Joe's comments, one thing that he talks about is the difference between an arid climate and wet climate. And obviously in the IECC, we have the different zones, 5A, 5B, but don't necessarily have that in the IRC. So when you start to review that part of, Joe's work and kind of some different also reference materials that you had in this, it does kind of change what you need to do on the outside of the house when you do have a vapor retarder, a class 3 on the inside. And with this adjustment, it would be good to kind of incorporate some of those things with our climate here in Colorado, where it lines up more with that 5B. So I think it'd be good to put an exception in there to basically promote, more opportunity for getting the vapor retarder on the inside, but then also still have, flexibility with what we're putting on the outside of the homes and not necessarily needing to add more complexity to the building envelope. So just like to throw that out to the group.
Excellent, thank you, Nathan. All right, let me just put your hand. Okay, any other testimony in opposition from the public? Testimony in opposition from the public. Okay, real quick, we're going to go to the committee for questions, and then Robbie, you'll have a minute for rebuttal once the committee has said their questions. All right, so committee, if you have questions of Robbie or questions of the opposition that you just heard, or you have comments, let's hear it now. Questions, concerns, thoughts on an amendment if you want one, anything for Robbie? No? All right, Robbie, I will give you a chance for rebuttal. 1 minute. Sorry, I deleted my clock, so I'll keep it here.
Hi, Robbie Schwartz with Bill Tank Inc. Sorry, Nathan, I didn't exactly follow what you were trying to say, but I think you're trying to make it more climate specific. And in our dry climate zone, I think the way to make it more climate specific would be to do something like what Colorado Springs has done, which is to say that you're not required to put a plastic vapor retarder, class 1 vapor retarder in the wall assembly at all. This proposal isn't going that far. It's just trying to define that clear airspace so that we can get better usage of class 3 vapor retarders and greater drying potential. Thanks.
Excellent, thank you, Robbie. All right, any other rebuttal in support? Any other rebuttal in support? Any other rebuttal in opposition? Nathan, did you want to rebut or mention anything on that? Go ahead. Sorry, I muted you.
Sure, yeah, I guess what I would add is that with our dry climate being under 20 inches of annual rainfall a year, the vented cladding is not a necessity for a class 3 or class 2 or class 1 retarder. It's when you look at the rest of the requirements in that table 702.7.1, it requires additional criteria to be met on the exterior cladding, and with our dry climate that just isn't needed. And we've been given direction by other building science gurus in the past that with a standard lap siding over house wrap over OSB, that provides plenty of drying with our arid climate.
Okay. Any other opposition? All right, any other opposition? All right, committee. We need a motion. Testimony, a motion. Okay, Kate.
And this, can I just ask a question versus making a motion, or do we have to make a motion first?
We need a motion so that we can have discussion.
Got it. Okay. Well then, I guess I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. To make a motion to approve as submitted for the purpose of discussion, right?
Yep.
Any second? Because it can always be. All right, Austin, thank you. All right, Kate, your discussion?
Yeah, so I'm just a little confused by the back and forth between Robbie and Nathan. So Robbie, can you explain like why the minimum airspace is required? Is that required in all aspects, or is there some carve out here that I'm missing?
I have to, before you answer that, Robbie.
Oh. Am I not allowed to ask him?
Well, I mean, we probably need to get there. It's just that we had our discussion mode and question mode, and now we're in vote mode. All right, I'm going to open it up, but I get it, because you have some rebuttal that now you need some more clarification, so we'll allow it. It's just that then I might have to, depending on what's said, I might have to open up the floor to the rebuttal for Nathan. So go ahead, Robbie. We'll allow it this time. So Kate, ask your question again, and unless Robbie, you understand.
I think I understand. Currently the code is saying that in order not to install a class 1 vapor retarder, you either need to put exterior, some exterior continuous insulation on the outside, or you need to have a vent, some type of vented space. And they give you examples of the vented space, which is listed here. I forget where. It's basically listed as brick veneer or other approved vented claddings and whatnot, but it doesn't clearly define what the vented space size is. So as a building consultant, assembly consultant, we've tried to get a waiver for not putting plastic on the exterior wall by just putting cladding or siding over a weather resistant barrier and trying to demonstrate that there's enough air movement behind that itself. And the city has specifically rejected that. So because of that, the thought is that if we are able to define that clear airspace, then we can better choose assemblies that can meet that definition, and therefore ensure that we don't have to put a class 1 vapor retarder in the assembly that has the potential of trapping moisture.
Thank you, Robbie. I'm going to open it up just to Nathan. If you have any rebuttal.
I'm back on. Looks like it. Yeah, and I guess to clarify it, maybe I'm in support, but with modification. So I think Robbie and I are on the same page. But what I was saying is, we don't need even the 3/16 inch airspace because of our arid climate here in Colorado. So I think I'm just looking to take it one little step further and put an exception in there for being able to do a class 3 vapor retarder on the inside without needing to do anything additional on the outside for a vented cladding. So I think that's maybe where our differences lie. I think Robbie's going the right direction. I'm just wanting to get one more step further down that path.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right. That is it. I'm going to close the floor back and go back to the committee. So the motion on the floor is for as submitted. Any discussion? Austin?
I guess my main concern on the differences between what Robbie and Nathan are saying are, what are the differences in cost towards the builders? And I think you both are suggesting that you're trying to do the same thing. I don't understand the building science behind this well enough to have a formal opinion on how to modify this in a way that would kind of thread the needle that works for both of you. So
might I also, well, I mean, there is a motion on the floor for as submitted, and there is some talk about maybe an amendment or something. This is one case where we would get through the motion and or we could table it until such time that Robbie and Nathan might be able to come forward with an amendment for you. But that is, you know, we don't like tabling. So if you think that you have enough info to really move forward with as submitted or modifying it yourself, that's of course the best option. But if you think that you would feel more comfortable tabling it so that the two of them could work on an amendment, then that is also an option. Michaela.
I would propose that we table this proposal for a future code hearing to give the committee a little bit more time to, to give Robbie and Nathan an opportunity, if they wish, to propose a modification, also give the committee a chance to look further into the testimony that Nathan has presented and Robbie.
So right now we have a motion on the floor. So in order for that to happen, we either need to work through that motion or I wouldn't work through the motion, but I would ask the person, Kate, who moved it, if she is willing to withdraw her motion.
Yes.
For that, because otherwise, if we work through it, we're going to get it to a disapproval, and we don't want to get there. It sounds like.
No. So yeah, I'll withdraw.
And would the second, I believe, was Austin, withdraw your second?
I withdraw my second.
Okay. So then Michaela has motioned to table the item. Is there a second for tabling? Kate, yes, okay. All right, any discussion? So when we table something, we table it time specific. We don't table it indefinitely. When is the next IRC hearing, Erica? Sorry, I'm putting her on the spot.
It's the 22nd.
Okay, so Robbie, do you feel like you could come up with a modification by the 22nd? Or at least work with Nathan to see if, or Nathan could come up with one. I mean, just something by the 22nd.
Yes, I think I could offer something right now. That would be simple and. But yes.
I believe you probably could, but I would like to get Nathan involved if you have, and we can get you his information, just since that's the two testimonies, if that would be all right. Will you be available to come back on the 22nd, Robbie?
Actually not, because I'll be at the ResNet conference.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Erica?
Yeah, Shauna, I would allow Robbie to propose a modification to the committee.
Okay.
Case.
All right, yeah. since you won't be here, Robbie, if you can propose your modification, and then we can see if.
I think to Nathan's point that if we moved the minimum clear airspace from 3/16 of an inch to 1/16 of an inch, that it would cover all applications in our climate zone. Now we just, I guess, see if Nathan agrees.
Nathan, are you available?
Yeah, I was just trying to look up what would provide a 1/16 inch airspace.
That's basically lap siding on weather resistant barrier.
But as a plan reviewer, if lap siding is getting installed directly over WRB, that's a tight application and there isn't an airspace, right?
Okay. Well, why don't we talk offline and come, and maybe you could present on the 22nd since I can't be here, but we can work together to
okay.
Move forward.
Excellent idea. So there's a motion on the floor for tabling this item until Robbie and Nathan can work on a modification and bring it back to us on February 22nd. And Kate, did you have further discussion, or you just still have your hand up? Okay. All right. All those in favor. Oh, let me see if there's any other. Nope. All the hands are down. All right. All those in favor of tabling this item to January or February 22nd, please raise your hand. And that looks unanimous. All right. So tabled to 22, which is a Tuesday. All those twos. All right. So maybe you should make that a 2/16. No, I'm joking. All right. Thank you very much, Robbie. And everybody, let's see, what time is it? We still have time. We're going to get through this. All right. I'm going to I'm going to say don't save that because we did not change it. And we're going to call to the floor item number P, a public proposal 24.2, which is for the IMC or for, well, IRC mechanical. Robbie, it looks like that is your proposal as well.
Yes. Robbie Schwartz with Built Tank Inc. Thank you again for allowing me to present on this proposal. In the IECC, it's very clear that you cannot use building cavities as pressurized duct systems or duct work. In the IMC, it is not clear at all. And we find in the field that sometimes mechanical contractors point code officials to the IMC or the IRC, mechanical section of the IRC, to be allowed to use a duct, to use a building cavity as a pressurized duct. There are a number of reasons why building cavities should not be used as a pressurized duct. The biggest is that we haven't really been able to find a way to cost effectively make them airtight. So you don't know where air is returning to the duct system, or if you are from, I guess, and we don't know when you're pressurizing it to supply air to a room, where that air is going in the building envelope. So you get a number of potential health and safety issues and potential building durability issues that come up when you have building cavities used as pressurized duct systems. So this proposal is in essence closing a loophole by not only allowing building cavities to be used as transfer grills, which is an unpressurized situation, rather than being used as a pressurized duct cavity. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Robbie. Real quick before we move forward to support and opposition to the public, I don't know, Nathan, if you could see in the chat, because he wasn't a panelist, so I don't know if he could see that message, but hopefully that we can get your email address. If you could put it in the chat, you put your email address in there so that we have it to give to Robbie for that last proposal. All right. On this proposal, so we would go to the public for testimony in support of this proposal. If you are in support of this proposal and would like to voice that support, testimony in support of this proposal.
Shauna, I'm just going to interrupt real quick. I thought this was supposed to be heard by the mechanical team and not as part of the IRC committee. Am I wrong?
Because it's IRC mechanical. That is a good question. I'm not sure.
Shauna, we can vote as a committee to move this to the mechanical.
Okay.
Be heard with mechanical if that's appropriate.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Michaela. I'm going to just finish up with testimony from the public, and then when it comes back to the committee, take your motion to move it to the mechanical committee, I guess, unless you want to just do that now. I just said we've already kind of started, so I don't know. I don't want to waste everybody's time. Well, is there any other testimony in support? Testimony in opposition to this proposal? Testimony in opposition. All right. Testimony in opposition. It looks like Nathan, are you wanting to talk in opposition?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm jumping in here again on Robbie's, but
that's good.
So, yeah, so these are air transfer grills that are basically from a bedroom into a hallway when we have a central air return in a home, or maybe two centralized air returns. So you're looking at the air transfer grills that are above doorways. And when you start to add more components into the home, this is just, instead of air going underneath, what may be an air gap underneath a door, this is just transferring that air from that bedroom into the hallway so that it can get back to the furnace, I think is what this is in reference to. And that will definitely add, to the cost of construction if we aren't able to utilize, that wall cavity. Is there an area maybe I didn't see? I see somebody's pointing to another section, but.
No, my mouse, it says shall be permitted. I don't know that it's.
That's in floor joists.
Okay.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding it. Maybe Robbie can point me in the right direction, but I think that's
what it's wall cavities and floor joists.
It's just as subject matter expert, I will say that what this is saying is that the cavities can't be used as ducts or plenums, but you can use cavities in the spaces. You are allowed to use them as just the transfer between two rooms on the same level. Okay. You just can't use them as a ducted, as your supply or return ducts back to the furnace or away. They're not allowed to be. That's.
I didn't scroll down far enough.
Okay. All right. Any other testimony in opposition? Okay. Opposition. All right. I'm going to bring it back to the panel or to the committee. Sorry. So committee, I would take your discussion. However, if your very first part of discussion is to move this to the mechanical committee, then I'd like to hear that now.
Motion to move to the mechanical committee.
All right, is there a second? Casey, thank you. Motion and a second to move this to, we're actually going to, I don't know if it's called, if we're tabling it or just moving it to the mechanical to be heard by the mechanical committee. Any discussion? No. I would then call for a vote. All those in favor of forwarding this proposal on to the mechanical committee, which doesn't start there. They don't start hearing anything until, I want to say May or June. I don't know. I'm moderating though. I think I would know.
I think it's April, Shauna.
Okay, May,
yeah.
April. It's later because they don't have very many proposals. So, all right. So all of those in favor of forwarding this to the mechanical committee to be heard later when they start, please raise your hand. That looks unanimous. All right, so that will be heard by the mechanical committee once they start up in April. Unanimous 8-0. All right, then let us call the last item that we have on our agenda. I think we have time, yes, for item number 12. Somewhere on here. Item number 12. This is Mr. Sobey, so let me bring him back over here. And I'm gonna lower your hand. All right, Mr. Sobey. Are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm Jim Sobey, plan reviewer with the City of Denver. And I have here a proposal which is quite extensive. And there are amendments to the Appendix F in the IRC. There are 9 different sections that are addressed here, and I will make an initial comment here about the need for clarity in the appendix, and these code sections attempt to address that because of the number of questions that we've had with the adaptation of the appendix with the latest code. I will also say, unfortunately, there are 3 sections in this proposal that are being vetted by me and some other people I've been speaking with in other municipalities that I don't feel comfortable with 100%. And I apologize for that. I did not realize they would be reviewed as they will be proposed today. The other sections I'm more than happy to go through. We've gone through 9 different proposals today. We've got 9 section proposals in the appendix here. And I'm very happy to present them with the caveat that there are 3 sections in here that I don't feel 100% comfortable with. And I don't know if that means tabling the whole section, which again is going to take a considerable amount of time to review. But I look for your advice here on that issue.
when you say it take a considerable amount of time to review, are you asking to table till like one of the latter hearings, or?
Well, the 22nd, the reason for the proposal to table 3 of the sections is that they need additional input. And I don't, they may be okay, but I did get some information recently from some recent studies about venting from the state of Colorado based on EPA analysis, which was contrary to some of the reports that we had earlier that those code sections were based on. And I did attempt to modify those, but it's been a recent attempt here. So,
well, I don't see that it makes any sense to go forward with part of the proposal and try to pick it apart and approve parts and come back with parts. We'd have to come back with the whole thing so that it's all heard together. So, I mean, my recommendation, unfortunately, is either, I mean, if you know parts of it are not right, my recommendation would be disapproval or table it. So I'm going to look for the committee. I'm going to ask the committee, please.
Yeah, I don't know that there are 3 sections. I don't know that they're not correct, but I'm not 100% convinced that they're ready to present.
All right, thank you. Michaela.
Jim, I have one quick question. I think it's section A5 103.13, that portion on, is that correct? That you would be looking to table?
Sorry, I muted him, so I have to ask to unmute.
I'm unmuted now.
Okay.
That section, yes, it's related to that section, and the elimination of the vent pipe requirement is connected to that. So section AF 103.5.3, 3.6.1, and 3.6.2 all refer to AF 103.13. So those are the sections where these are code sections that have been adopted by other municipalities that currently there have been some very recent information regarding their language and how they're written and how they're applied. So, yeah.
All right, any recommendation, any, I mean, it feels like we should table it if there's that much to it that needs to change. It feels like we should table it.
Motion to table.
Okay. I mean, I don't want us to get in the habit of this because we have actually some cush in there, but we won't if we keep doing this. So, but this gives some good reasons for tabling. So, motion to table by Michaela, and it looks like a second by Casey. All right. Is there any discussion? Mark?
The comment was made that there's areas in this proposal that need to be revised. Would they be revised prior to us revisiting it?
Yeah, it looks like he will. The idea is to get a modified proposal prior, and we need to do a date certain when we table. So that we will get a revised proposal to bring forward to you instead of what is here, based on the testimony that some of it is being challenged or is incorrect. So you would get a revised proposal.
Thank you.
What date then? Let's see. So we only have 4 hearings. I believe the 22nd is probably going to be too soon. So can we put it for the 3rd hearing? What is that date, Erica? I don't have my calendar open.
March 22nd.
Okay, March 22nd. Mr. Sobey, can you please, we would ask that this be tabled to March 22nd. Would you be able to get us a proposal well ahead of that so that the committee has time to review it by the March 22nd hearing?
Yes. Why don't we also set a date for a deadline for the delivery to the committee so they have plenty of time to review?
I think that is already, there is a given of it.
There is,
what is
okay.
it, Erica?
Yeah, so James, I'll just need your finalized proposal at least latest 1 week before the code hearing.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Yes. Nope.
Yes, because we have to publicize it too. It has to be published on the website and the committee has to have time to review it. Okay, so motion on the table is for tabling it, and I kind of modified your motion, Michaela, to March 22nd. So if there's no other discussion, I would ask for the vote. All those in favor of tabling till March 22nd, please vote. 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of you. Okay. All right. All those opposed. Oh, Austin, are you opposed, or are you just a late hand raise?
Just late. My Zoom is getting a little finicky here.
Oh, well, it's good that this is the last proposal on our agenda today. All right, so it looks like that item was moved to be tabled to March 22nd, approved in unanimously 8-0. 322-0. All right, excellent. Thank you all so much. That concludes all of the proposals that we had on the agenda today. Well, I would show you that, but I don't know why. There we go. So because we didn't have any other proposals on here, we're not going to move forward with any of the next ones because the public has to have the right to know that we're presenting. So we will start up again on February 22nd, and we will likely start with that first tabled item of the vapor retarders as proposed by Robbie and Nathan. So we will see you all. Thank you very much. I'll stay on the line for a few minutes. If anybody has any questions, comments, concerns you want to discuss before moving forward to the next hearing as a committee, or just feedback, we would love your feedback. So if anybody has anything they want to say, otherwise we'll see you on February 22nd.